So I left Tulcan pretty early in the morning, and the reason for that was I had been through this particular border on the way down, and it wasn't a crazy border, no problems with it. But because of the problems in Venezuela and all of the people leaving Venezuela, basically just everyone trying to get out of Venezuela, this border in Tulcan had reports of having lineups of up to 10 hours to get through it. Now, in the weeks leading into me crossing the border, apparently the situation had gotten a bit better, but it still wasn't an ideal situation. So I was like, wanted to get there really early just to make sure if there was a 3 or 4 hour wait that it didn't kill my day and I wasn't driving the whole time at night. So I got to the border, I don't know what time, like 9 or something, which for you is like, that's not early, but for me that's pretty early to already be there by that time. Maybe even earlier, I don't know. But anyway, it wasn't any problem getting through it. There were a lot of Venezuelan like families and people who were fleeing Venezuela. So that was like, kind of put things in perspective in a way, because here I am sort of like worrying about, oh, can I get my car home? Like, I've got this like annoying extra leg of the journey after Lima that I have to do to get to Cartagena to do it, and like I still don't know if all the logistics are going to work out for this. And it just was like, dude, like your life, like these people don't have a home, man. Like they're on the road. Like they don't have anything. They don't have a house, they don't have anything. They have themselves, their children if they have children, and they're just like the clothes on their back. So it was just like, okay, I can't complain at all. But at that border, like I kind of made a dumb move. Like I knew that there had been an indigenous protest going on in Colombia, and that the main highway from the south up to Cali had been blocked. I knew that. And I had kind of looked at some possible detour routes to take, but I was like, even before I left the border, one of the officials was talking to a German couple, a motorcycle couple, like a man and a woman, older, and he told me that like apparently they couldn't get north in Colombia, so they had to turn around and come back. Like they just couldn't make it north in Colombia. And I was assuming this was because of the blockade, like the indigenous protest on the main highway. But and it had been like 3 weeks of that, right? It wasn't just like a day. It had been like 3 weeks of that. No one could get through the highway. But I thought, oh, well, there is a detour. Maybe they just didn't want to take it or whatever, right? So I went. That was kind of stupid, but it was like, whatever, I went. And right away when I crossed the border, the first thing I saw was a gas station with like a massive lineup. So I was like, I'm not stopping there. Like, I'll go to one that doesn't have a lineup. I thought it was just like a long lineup because it was the last one before the border, maybe like a better price or something like that. But sure enough, that was like the dumbest move I ever made, because as I kept working on and going on and on and on, moving, driving, like my tank's getting lower, and every gas station's like, no gas, no gas. So I'm starting to pull over to the gas stations like, yo, like, where can I get gas? And they're like, well, in the big city, you can get it in Pasto. And I was like, okay, hopefully I can make it to Pasto. So I'm driving, and then before I get to Pasto, I'm like really worried. Now it's kind of rainy, but I'm like, I don't know, no gas, you can't get that gas anywhere. So I stopped at this one last gas station. I said, yo, like, what do you think? He's like, I know that there's one in Pasto that will be selling you gas. It will sell gas. I don't know how long the lineup's going to be for it, but you can try that. So he, on his phone, because I don't have like Wi-Fi on my phone, like I said, I only have my maps that I have. So I was going to do a detour off my route. So I took photographs of his phone, showing me the route on his phone, because he had data of how to get to this gas station. But I don't even think I went to that gas station. I think I turned down to Pasto, and you go down this valley to get to Pasto. And I saw a gas station right away with a very long lineup. And like, but instead of the lineup going right into the gas station, there was a gap where you go into the gas station. And I don't know what I was thinking. I honestly was not trying to be like sneaky or smart or anything like that. I just pulled into the gap. And then right away everyone starts honking, and the official at the gas station's like, what are you doing? There's a lineup. And I was like, sorry, I didn't know, in Spanish. But they could tell right away I was a gringo, and from my plates and what stuff on the car. So because I was already in the gas station, they just said, no, come up to the front. They let me go right to the front of the line. And I'm not kidding you, I probably would have had to wait 4 hours to get gas if they hadn't done that. Like, it was insane. So anyway, so I get to the front of the line, and they say, how much do you want? And say, like, fill it up if you will. They fill up. And then I was talking to them about this detour that I plan to take to get around the roadblock. And they were like, no, you can't do that in this car. It's dirt road, and it's like crazy. There's no way you can do that in this car. And I was like, oh my god. So like, what do you think I should do? And they told me, well, you could try this other route, but it was like going to be super long. And I had actually heard there was a roadblock on that route too. So I was like, oh my god, I don't know. But I talked to a police officer, and he was like, the detour that you're planning on taking, I've taken it before. I take it all the time. And like, it is sketchy, but you can do it in your car. You just have to be extremely careful. And I was like, okay, knowing that I'm not the like best driver in the universe, but I was like, okay. So I was like, hey, well, we're doing it. So I continued on my way in the direction towards that detour I was going to have to take. But there was a city I had to get to first to stay before I even got to the detour. So anyway, so I'm on my way to this city called El Bordo. And most of the route, like I'll show you some videos here, just kind of in like the green mountains, like deep valleys, whatever. I think there's a video here where you can see like not sketchy roads, but how there's like some kind of like slide that came on the road, so you have to go to one lane or whatever. But it wasn't, the roads weren't crazy. Okay, they weren't crazy, but whatever. So that was the landscape. But as you get closer to El Bordo, it like drops in elevation, and actually leading into El Bordo was like total jungle, like total jungle, and like tons of cop stops, like where they would pull you over and say whatever. And of course they always pulled me over because I have foreign plates. But most of the time it was just like funny because I could speak Spanish well enough that I could just joke around with them. A lot of the cops are like super young and they're like, "What the hell are you doing in Colombia with a car from Canada?" But just like bantering whatever. Right? I remember there was one time there was a female officer and the guys made the joke like, "Oh, do you want to take her with you?" And I was like, "Well, I would if I." And it was funny, like just laughing or whatever. Right? So even though it's cops, you'd be like stressful because they had like machine guns and stuff. It was just chill. But in that valley leading into El Bordo, because El Bordo is a little bit on a plateau, nothing majorly high, but in that valley below, also what was really interesting was like everyone was like totally Afro Colombian, like, and I'd say like not even mixed, like just like straight up like African, but in Colombia. And I knew that there were Africans in Colombia, but like in Brazil the populations were quite mixed, so you get mixed features like Latin, European, African all mixing together, indigenous. But this wasn't like that, and there was like no white people there. It was like all black people. So that was like a weird, interesting kind of difference from Brazil. So anyway, so I ended up going up to El Bordo. That was fine. In that town, it was more of a mixed population, and that town was super small. So I got in my car to the hotel, no problems like that. I was wandering around to get some food, just check out the town. It's pretty cool, like kind of like tiny little town, but like interesting mix of things. There's a photo or something like that, maybe a little video, I don't know. And there was an old guy there who started talking to me, super religious guy, and he like wanted me to like go to the like evangelical like or like the sermon later that night. I was like, okay, maybe, but then I just went off on my walk and kind of wandered around. Went to the central square, had to get some money out of an ATM or something like that. So no problems in El Bordo. That was good. And then from there, like the next day was gonna be like mission day to like try to get out on the detour. So I was like, please don't rain. I had windshield wipers, yes, but I knew that if the road was gonna be dirt, like please don't rain. So I'm driving there, and sure enough, about like I think I passed Popayan first, which I had stayed in before, and like Pasto, which I mentioned at the gas station. I'd stayed there as well on the way down, but I was trying to go through Colombia faster this time, so staying in different cities, longer drives. So my plan was to get to Tulua through this detour, and the detour, like it's after Popayan, and you take the detour at Piendamo, and somewhere between Popayan and Piendamo, it just started to pour, and I was like, oh, so I get to like the part where the detour begins, and the cops have closed it off. Like you can't take the detour. Some vans seem to find a way through, or the cops were cool about it, like you couldn't get through. So I talked to this cop. He's like, no, we have to wait for the rain to stop. So I was just waiting for about an hour, and I talked to this other cop. I was like, yo, like, will you let me through? Because it wasn't yet the dirt road; it was still paved. And he's like, no, but if you go down about 100 meters and make a left, you can get onto the road. So I do that, and then there's this like little downhill in like mud, and I'm like stopped at the top of it with my car, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this because it had like huge grooves, and like I thought I'd bottomed my car out. I didn't think I'd get through it. And there was a guy behind me on a motorbike, and he was like, just watching me, and I was like, is the route, like, this route that I need to take this detour worse than this? He's like, yes, like, way worse than this. And I was like, oh my god, I'm never going to make it. But I still, like, I backed out from that thing, and I took a, like, nicer route to get to the main road for the detour, and managed to get onto it. But I was like, oh god, like, I'm not going to make this, like, it seems impossible. So I was on asphalt still, and I get to this little city, Morales, and the rain at this point is like buckets. Like my car's leaking in, because I told you the seal on the windshield's not so good. Water's leaking in. It's like I have to turn on the defrost. There's so much rain. So I pull over by the like little square in Morales, and there's rigs going by, but like no one really wants to drive. Like it's the worst. And I'm like, if it's raining that bad here on paved road that like I can't even drive because it's like too heavy. When I get to the dirt road and it's worse than that road that I already saw, like I'm never gonna be able to make it. There's no way. And like I just hit like the lowest point of the trip. I was like, you're not going to get this car home. Because the date that I needed to get to Cartagena by, I was like, there's no way I can make it. If I backtrack, that other way is going to be blocked. Or if it isn't blocked, I don't know if I can. I was just like, I'm not going to make it to Cartagena. And I was like destroyed. I was like, just wait until the rain settles and just see what happens. So the rain settled a bit, and then I started moving forward again. For no reason, because I was like, you're not going to make it. But I moved forward, still paved. And I got to where the queue of cars begins. And I was like, okay, so I talked to some people, and they're like, oh yeah, like it's just like the police have us blocked off here, but we'll get through later on today. So get through later on today. We move forward maybe like 50 meters in like 5 hours. And then it's like night, and we're in the forest, like huge lineup of cars, and like obviously we're not getting through that night. So I slept in my car that night, and actually slept fairly comfortably. It was weird. Like not on the board thing, but just like in the chair. And at 6 a.m. I hear honking and people cheering, and it's like, okay, we're moving. So like full adrenaline, wake up and then start driving forward. And we only went forward maybe like a kilometer or two to around this plateau. It was like a super nice plateau to be on if you're gonna have to wait though. And so I got some video of that there. It felt like coffee land. There was like a little lake below, whatever. So it was a good spot to be. Talking to the other people in the cars around me about like what it might be. No one really knew what was going on. Like they didn't know why we had to keep waiting. But there were cars coming through in the other direction. So I was kind of like, okay, and this is still asphalt at this point. So I went up and talked to the military guys, of course, like military guys with their guns, and I was like, so what is the situation here? And like, are we going to be allowed through? He's like, when the last car comes through in the other direction, you guys will be allowed through. And I was like, how many of us? And that was always the debate, like, are they going to allow 50 of us through, 400 of us? Because there was like thousands of cars waiting, right? And so he's like, no, we're going to allow all of you through. And I was like, well, do you know when the last car's coming through in the other direction? Because the problem was, for the detour in the section of dirt, they had tried to make it flatter so that people could get through it, but it was only one lane. So it was like you couldn't have traffic going through both ways. So I asked the military guy, I was like, do you guys know what's the last car? He's like, yeah, we got the license plate. And he told me a license plate number, which I thought I like sort of remembered. So I went back like 2 kilometers to where my car was parked. And I told the people around there, like, they have the license plate. They say it's going to happen. But of course, another half hour goes by, so we're all sort of like doubting it, right? And then sure enough, like, boom, like 20 minutes later, we're all moving. So that was great. Like, we actually got to go. And what the deal was, they would just do like one day in like this direction, one day in this direction. So anyway, so we go, and of course we hit the dirt part, and like, as long as I went slow, and like, I didn't do anything too crazy, I could get through it. It wasn't nuts. There was a couple parts where I think I did grind out the bottom of the car, like didn't ruin it, but was like rubbing because of the middle hump being too big in the mud. But anyway, not a problem, got through there, and on the way down, I've got a video of like, you can see this motorbike with a gas canister, because there's no gas, right? So the motorbikes had to be like, to go past this detour to Cali to get gas to bring it back to the people in like little canisters. So he's trying to go around these rigs. You can see in the queue that there's all the rigs and whatever. Anyway, so we get to Suarez, which is the town on the other side. And again, we have to stop. They won't let us through. But at least in Suarez there was like food. Like I got some pineapple, and that was all good. And after about an hour, they let us go again. And what I was worried about here though was I was like, okay, like to get back to the highway from this detour there's still quite a bit of ground to cover. And it's like super military sound, like dudes with machine guns. And there's like an indigenous standoff, and it's like some of the roads to get back to the highway were like there were plants like the height of a house, and just like super skinny. I'd seen them like sort of when I was doing the Google Earth to map my route out. And I like did not want to be driving through that at night in this kind of climate of like protests and war and military and stuff like that. So anyway, so fortunately I managed to get through all of that before it became like pitch black. And then I hit the highway and bypassed Cali, but pretty soon, like definitely pulled over and got some gas. Because once you could, the situation with the gas was like this. Because the main highway was closed, they were not able to deliver gas to the southern part of Colombia. Like, they just couldn't deliver it in large quantities. So there was no way you could get gas in the south part of Colombia at that time, that 3-week period of the road blockade, which actually went on for another week after that. And even food shortages and things like that, because they just couldn't be delivered down from the north. So as soon as I got around this detour and got back on the highway, I was able to get some gas. That was cool. And bypassed Cali, which I'd stayed in last time. And then my hotel was in Tulua. So I'm on my way to Tulua, and of course it starts raining like crazy, but no problem. I got wipers. I'm on the highway. Everything's good. And get to Tulua, major downpour. In the period where I like parked my car in a different place because the hotel had a parking but a different building, to get to the hotel and get food and get like some water and get like some bread. I just got like drenched. Like it was super rainy that night. And anyway, but I was safe and sound. I was in Tulua, past the roadblock, and on my way up to Medellin to see Tyson, and then eventually Cartagena to try to ship the car home. And I wasn't that far off schedule now. It was okay. One day off schedule, but not a huge deal. So I get to the hotel, and they're cool. And the room was funny. It had like this like new agey nude painting or whatever. It was just like stupid or whatever, funny. But anyway, so then the next day I would be off heading north in the clear now to get to Tyson and Medellin and up to Cartagena eventually to ship the car.